Hello, very good evening. Your Thursday date with sporting chat, mostly football chat, although we will have a variation on that coming up next week, which is going to be partly a Speedway special. But for this evening, yeah, football rules the roost, and we've got a very topical guest, well, a couple of guests actually, one of whom played for a couple of this region's clubs that are doing particularly well at the moment. Sheffield United, of course, dare I say, Leeds United as well, that he performed with distinction for. Currently is the manager of my team, and they're doing a lot better since he took over as well. John Pemberton, good evening to you.
Good evening, Alan.
Yeah, great of you to come in. And with you is Naz Premji, long-time colleague of mine. Those of you who listen to Radio 5 Live or watch BBC Final Score, Naz works for both of them on a Saturday. In fact, we were colleagues on the same Final Score many times, weren't we?
We were, Alan. We were.
Over the years.
And a pleasure it was too.
Absolute pleasure. And you actually should listen to Talk Sport now, by the way, and not listen to Naz, because you work for Talk Sport. Never mind that. John, good to see a smile on your face. Talking of my team, saw an absolutely brilliant game of football on Tuesday night, but went home pig sick. Chesterfield 3, Harrogate 4. It's bad enough for those who watched it, although it was a cracking game. How long does it take a manager to recover from a last-minute goal against you like that?
Not as sick as I was, Alan. No. I can tell you that. It's hard to stomach because we actually, in the game, we actually played quite well. You know, we went toe-to-toe with a good side, but we just got done. We didn't defend well enough to win the game. Oh, it was a great game.
Can you appreciate that from where you're standing there?
Sort of, yeah. You know, it was. I was saying, I made a comment about it was a little bit like a basketball match. It was end to end, but you know, the game was quite open. We have to listen. It's getting the balance right of trying to win a football match. We know we need to win games to get out of the position we're in. So it's getting the balance right between trying to win a game and not going gun ho. But try telling that to the players when they're trying to win a game.
Their instincts at 3-3, and you'd twice been behind, were to go and win the game, weren't they?
Yeah, I can assure you it wasn't mine.
It wasn't yours, no.
But you know, I was screaming at the end just to tighten up, and that's where we got done in the end. In 2 minutes to go, 2 minutes in extra time. But they're in a better place now than they were certainly 8 weeks ago. And that's a pleasing thing for me. That I can see the improvement in them, and I can see the spirit coming back. And the big one for me is I can see the connection with the supporters and the players again, which is massive, I think.
It was massive talking about that. Talking of massive, we'll talk to Naz about Sheffield Wednesday in a minute. But to see you and the team applaud it off following a 4-3 defeat told me everything about how the mood had changed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know quite what it was like. Obviously, I was at Chesterfield last year, but I was working in the academy, looking after the young players there, and they've had it. It's been a tough time for the Chesterfield supporters, and they haven't really had a lot to shout about. But it's nice that they appreciate the improvement that they're seeing in their team, which is pleasing for me, because it says that the work that we're doing, myself and the staff are doing, is now starting to show some fruits.
I think it's 4 wins out of 7 since you took caretaker control, and you're now in charge until the end of the season. So we'll project that and look a little bit further later. Hard times for Chesterfield, but comparatively, Sheffield Wednesday are having a whale of a time. Comparatively, in the Championship. There's a lot to be said for being in the Championship, I tell you.
Well, I've got a lot of time for Chesterfield, because I was there covering Chesterfield for 7 years, Alan. In the sort of Roy McFarlane, Dave Rushbury, Lee Richardson. So I
didn't think you were that old.
No, well, thank you. Tenors in the post, kind of. But no, I've got a lot of time. I've got a soft spot, and you build up a soft spot, having covered them home and away for the best part of 7 years and 7 seasons, and we went through many highs, many sort of lows. I remember there was a last a last day relegation
Was it Glenhurst?
dogfight, Glenhurst, I think, against Luton. There was a big game at Saltergate where it was absolutely rammed, and Glenhurst scored a really crucial goal. And I remember the times when I'm commentating on Chesterfield against Sheffield Wednesday. Chris Brandon, I remember, used to torment Wednesday, something chronic in those sort of League One days. And so I've got a lot of time for Chesterfield, a lot of time for John as well, because he's a good bloke.
Yeah, your leanings, do you mind me saying where they are towards...
No, it's public knowledge, Yeah,
it's public knowledge,
It's public knowledge, I don't hide it.
Sheffield Wednesday,
yes,
right?
I am, yeah.
So we've got a balance, because I don't think John's leanings are quite that way. We're going to talk about his Blades career, but also Chris Wilder, who he knows and was a teammate of, etc., and what they're achieving now. But just kick us off with your thoughts on Sheffield Wednesday. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll throw it to John first. You know, they're going through a bad time.
Thanks for that. There you go.
That's a hospital ball, if ever there was one.
That's 2 foot. It's a straight red, that.
That's how we greet each other.
Yeah. Well, yes, you've got to, haven't you?
It's like that.
Oh, to put in a spot. Well, they did really well up until I think Christmas, was it?
Yeah, third.
Yeah, and then I don't quite know what's happened, but you go through patches where you can't quite drag it together. I don't know for whatever reason. But
looking from the outside, that squad's barely changed in 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, it can get. Sometimes you do need some fresh faces. People think sometimes by changing the manager is going to make a difference. It may make a difference, but if there's a problem within your team or within your squad, it's going to raise its head somewhere along the line. It's not always the manager's fault. It's.
You know Gary Monk?
I know Gary. Yeah. Obviously, we had some. Well, he's done well. He's done well where he's been. So
people say he hasn't, but I look at that.
I think he's done all right.
Swansea.
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
Leeds United, he did very respectable.
Yeah, I mean, they when he was there, they missed out. They had a really poor run, similar to the one Wednesday are having now, and they just missed out on the top 6. And I think that kind of just sort of muddied his copybook a little bit at Leeds. But they were, they were a mess when he arrived there. And he turned that club around, and a lot of the. Some of the players that Monk brought into Leeds United, Pablo Hernandez for a start, that was a Gary Monk signing, if memory serves me correct. And there's a few others that he brought in, and he changed the sort of philosophy and the way they play. And obviously, Marcelo Bielsa's gone and improved that. But since he's left, I think you can look back and say he was a success.
Yeah, is that your take on it as well? Because Leeds United being one of your old clubs as well. He's
done well, and sometimes people go in and they get jobs and they get jobs at difficult times. You very seldom get a job where you're going into a good place. You get a job because things aren't quite right, and you've got to turn it round. And he seems to have been able to do that wherever he's been. He went into Sheffield Wednesday. They were third up to Christmas.
Well, he took over from a very popular and excellent manager in Steve Bruce, didn't he? And there was a sense of deflation that Steve Bruce had got. But yeah, Middlesbrough was very short-lived, and he was sacked. Birmingham, he did a terrific job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's rather harshly treated on his career. But the one thing he has got is a hell of a lot of experience for a 40-year-old.
Well, yeah. But he's been at some big clubs, so you get the experience by being at those kind of clubs in those kind of situations.
First interview I ever did with you, and you probably forget it, was the very day that you arrived at Sheffield United. I interviewed you for the Daily Express, I think.
No, I remember.
You do?
I was a baby then.
Yeah. So was I.
I wish, yeah.
I wish I was, yeah. And you'd signed from Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
And before we talk about Sheffield United now, is it correct to say that, I think Dave Bassett would admit this, that you were signed to play right back, and so that he didn't have to play Chris Wilder?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Chris was had a few games in and around. I think when I came in, I think Colin Hill was the right back, but I remember speaking to Harry and Harry saying, look, I want to take you to Sheffield, because I could have gone to a few clubs. But I just quite liked Harry when I spoke to him. You know what he's like. He's an infectious character, says it as it is. And I really enjoyed that side of him. And so I think I'd agreed to sign on the Tuesday. And we went away pre-season. on the Saturday, and that just really opened my eyes of what he was. I mean, he was just crackers, but I loved him. Yeah. You know, he was just unique.
And you've still to this day not met anybody in football quite like him?
No, I've been fortunate enough in my career where I've worked with good people at the right time for me. You know, going through, obviously, I had Eric Harrison as a young coach when I was at Man United. He's obviously the class of '92, who was just, I mean, you probably couldn't get away now with some of the things where it used to be, but it gave me a brilliant grounding. And then I went to Crewe and, you know, with Daryl Grady, and he taught me the game, you know, and he improved me as a player. Then I had Steve Coppell at Palace, who was just tactically very good, and then just the best manager I've ever been with.
Steve Coppell?
No, Harry.
Harry.
Which was obviously I went to Palace, to Sheffield was.
But you said he was crackers. Well,
just he. We would go away. We wouldn't have a curfew with Harry. We went away anywhere. I mean, we went to curfew. You just did what you did, but then you had to perform. But he surrounded himself with a certain type of person, a certain
boisterous type of person.
Yeah, men.
Yeah.
I want to say, you know, like people who could, you know, if you were weak, you would go under in that dressing room with those kind of characters. Yeah. But you know, you couldn't get a thumbnail between them, and that was the beauty of that.
Is there some similarity to what's the dressing room at Sheffield United now?
I think so. I think so. I think Chris talks highly of Harry, about how he was. He certainly was great for us, the people we had and the characters we had. And Chris is, you know, he's all for the team spirit and that togetherness and accepting responsibility and being able to trust them to do the jobs.
It doesn't push the borders in terms of boisterousness. I'm sure that Dave Bassett's players will, but it was a different age. But Sheffield United, before I come back to you, Naz, just a team of a squad of really strong characters. You feel, don't you?
Good characters, and you look at the players that Chris brought in when they were in League One, and I remember when he first arrived, it wasn't all plain sailing. I remember, I think it was a Sunday game at Gillingham where they lost, and there were murmurings and various things.
They lost
is this
the first four?
Yeah, and he was, you know, he was just settling in, but the characters and the players and the personalities in that squad. And the way he's moulded them. And to be fair, Chris has got a brilliant number 2 in Alan Nill, who, you know, they work well as a team. And John will be, you know, John will tell you, you can be a great manager, but you need a great staff behind you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can't do it on your own. And what you've got to do, you've got to trust people. And Nill is first and foremost, he's a really good guy. Yeah. Works very hard, and he's very good. And he's really good for Chris. You know, and Chris obviously trusts him, but you know, to do what he's done, I think sometimes there comes a time in a process where you just get the right fit, and Chris Wilder is the right fit for Sheffield United. Absolutely 100%.
Could you, or anybody for that matter, have envisaged quite the job that he's done in terms of the progress in such a short time?
Probably not. But not surprised by it, because he's done brilliant where he's been, and the beauty for Chris, he's earned his stripes. You know, he's been round, you know, the Halifaxes and he's been at Oxford and he's been at Northampton, so he's done it the hard way. He's worked hard, he's travelled around, he's grafted, and he's had the opportunity. For me, probably should have done it sooner. You know, they should have made the decision sooner, because he's always been knocking on the door. And he's an absolute, you couldn't get a better fit for where the club was, the finances it had, and the situation, and it just needed like someone to connect the team with the supporters. And he's gone in there and done it unbelievable.
Have you seen much of? Obviously, you're working full time now, but have you seen much of the Blades this?
Yeah, I've seen a few games. I watched the first game, obviously, the first game back in the Premiership against Palace. And I managed to get to the Man City game.
And I mean, it's not just the results. The football's great, isn't it? Absolutely great to watch.
Yeah, people think that they're a long ball. They're anything but a long ball team.
No,
it's ignorance, that, John. For me, I can't. When pundits. And we have this conversation all the time, Alan, when we're out and about, in various sort of press boxes. The ignorance of pundits and when somebody just blurts out, oh, they're a long ball. Well, no, they're not. You need to look at what Chris and Alan and the rest of the staff have done and moulded that team from a League One side now to a Premier League side that are 5th, 6th in the table, memory serves me correct, wherever they are now, and they've gone to big grounds and big teams, and most of the time, played them at their own game, got the results, and they deserve to be where they are. From a Wednesday fan's point of view, there are certain managers from United that we begrudgingly respect. Yeah, and Chris Wilder's one, Harry's another. Yeah. And Neil Warnock. Those are the three that sort of spring to mind, because we can respect how good they are, and we can understand. And normal. You'll always get the rival. The normal fans, the fans that can see. Actually, those three guys have done phenomenal work when they were at Sheffield United during their time, and Chris is continuing to do that. And for me, Alan, I don't understand why. And I don't want to sell him or anything like that, but. When big jobs come along now, people should be saying Chris Wilder, Alan Knill, because of what he's done.
I think there's been interest, but unfortunately Sheffield United acted in time to head it off in terms of contracts and backing in the January window, which is crucial. Well, it's a remarkable thing. Chris is the first to admit that his team has to play well to get to win. It can't be at 70% and win, and yet they've produced that 85-90% performance virtually throughout with almost the same team.
I think that's the beauty of sometimes you can have a. I mean, my time at Bristol City, we ended up winning the league, winning the cup, 2015. We had 64 games, and we used 18 players.
Wow.
So you just you can be lucky with injuries. But the thing about it, like anywhere else, when you're winning, people don't get injured because they want to stay in the team. Yeah. And that's where it is. He's found he's got a unique way of playing. People are finding it very difficult to get to grips with it. Even when obviously they're not stupid. They scout them when they play them. There's all the footage, you can break it down on every machine. But they still can't get to grips with how they play. It's effective way of playing.
Have you played in anything like that yourself as a player?
Well, we played when we were at Bristol. We played 3 centre back. We did very similar.
But with the outside centre backs over.
Well, we had Luke Ayling.
Right. Yes.
Who was there you go. So we brought Luke Ayling. What we did, Alan, we identified. When the club got relegated, it was paying a massive finance. The wages we were paying, and they were in the first division. So we went in and we had to change all that. So we cut the wage bill, and we identified all the best players in the first division. So to try and get us out of it, so we brought in Luke Ayling, we brought in Frankie Fielding, Aidan Flint, Derek Williams, who's in Aston Villa's youth team, Luke Freeman, who was at Stevenage.
Right.
And then we brought Aaron Wilbraham and Wade Elliott. So we brought 2 senior players in who were brilliant professionals. And we ran with that. And that's that's how we turned it round. So it's identifying what was out there and make the change of it.
And Luke Freeman, who set up the winning goal for Billy Sharp as Sheffield United reached the quarterfinals of the FA Cup this week, and well, that was a little bit of a narrow squeeze, but not as narrow a squeeze as when Sheffield United reached the semi-finals in your time, and that was a quarter-final against Blackburn Rovers, and you played a key part in the finale of that, and we're going to relive that in part 2 of the show. Your thoughts as well, further thoughts on the Blades, the Owls and Leeds United. We've just got 30 seconds to the break. And a few sort of betting tips from this guy, because his day job during the week is presenting William Hill TV.
Yeah.
So he's got loads of tips for us, Naz Premji. And John, being involved in football, you have got to close your ears completely to all of that. But I'm prepared to listen to you. Do rejoin us in 5 with Naz Premji and John Pemberton. We'll see you then.